Hey, welcome again if you haven't already been watching. We are here tonight at Willamette Valley Kitchen Company in downtown Salem, Oregon. My name is Chef Amy. I am the chef and owner of this kitchen store and cooking school here. And we are here for another of our fun, easy virtual cooking classes where you cook along with me, and at the end you have a lovely dinner for your family or your friends. So tonight we are cooking chicken thighs. They are pan-seared chicken thighs. We are going to create a pan sauce after the chicken is done using a spicy chili and some shallot, some honey, and some apple cider vinegar, and that mixes together with fat that has rendered out of the chicken to create a kind of a delicious, flavorful vinaigrette, a hot vinaigrette, and we will use that to wilt our mustard greens salad. So very bright, bold flavors with very few ingredients. It's kind of a fun, simple dish. And then to go along with that, what pairs nicely is some cornbread. So we're making some quick, cheesy cornbread muffins. Let's go ahead and get started cooking. So I'm actually going to start with the chicken tonight. This chicken is very hands-off, so I'm just gonna heat up my skillet. I'm using I think it's a 10-inch cast iron skillet. I recommend cast iron for this dish if you have it. If you don't, a nice heavy-duty non-stick skillet. Honestly, actually, a stainless steel skillet would work well. Just make sure you have a nice heavy skillet. I'm gonna go ahead and heat that up. Get my burner on there. So while that's heating, we can season our chicken thighs. So I was kind of specific, and hopefully you were able to find what we were looking for here. This dish really works best if you use chicken thighs that are on the larger side. You want bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs for this. And the package that I have been able to find, they're really quite big chicken thighs. So just 4 of them is over 2 pounds in the package. So bigger than normal. If you try to use smaller chicken thighs with this, the timing as the recipe is written is not going to be quite right, so they'll take less time to cook before they start getting overcooked. So big chicken thighs are the way to go here. And obviously we're cooking 4. They're nice and big, so I consider this to serve 4 people, especially considering that we're going to have a dozen little corn muffins to go along with it. But if you need more than 4 at your house, I would suggest cooking them in 2 different pans because you want them to have enough room to cook properly and get a nice crispy skin. If you tried to cram a bunch of chicken all into one pan, it would just steam and not get the crispy skin we're looking for. So, first thing we're going to do is put a little bit of salt, a pinch of salt, underneath the skin of each piece of chicken. I like to do that. I just think it gives it a lot better seasoning if you can get a little salt underneath there. Usually your chicken thigh, if you look at the bottom of it, it has that bone. This end, I consider kind of the bottom end of the chicken thigh, is where it's easier to pull up the chicken skin. So try to go in from that end. And I just put in a little sprinkle of salt into each one. Probably, it's just like a good pinch. It's not even really a measurable amount, but less than 1/8 of a teaspoon, probably. Let's see, where is this one opening? Here it is. And then just kind of get that chicken back in place. Now, I did mention in the recipe and in the prep list, so hopefully you had an opportunity to do that you do want to have trimmed your chicken. Sometimes when you get it from the store, it looks good to go, but sometimes it has way too much skin for the piece of chicken that you have, or lots of big pieces of fat along the edges. So I have definitely trimmed these up. You can see the skin just exactly matches the piece of chicken, and I trimmed, there's usually fat here and here, and I trimmed that excess fat off. We're still gonna have plenty of fat just from the skin to render down and create our delicious pan sauce. Now I'm just giving these a nice generous sprinkle of salt on the outside of the skin. I'm gonna go wash my hands. As we are going along here with our cooking, don't forget, if you have a question that comes up, something you're not sure about, just go ahead and use the chat feature on YouTube, and we will answer your question live here in class. So I have some black pepper. I'm going to sprinkle that on each one. And then we have one more seasoning to put on here, and it is something you might associate more often with seafood, and that's Old Bay seasoning. I have this nice old tin one. If you go to the store now, they don't come in a tin anymore. They come in a plastic container. Not as fun. So I'm gonna keep this tin and refill it if I have to get more Old Bay. Anyway, this is a very flavorful seasoning. It's commonly used on shrimp, crab, crawfish, but actually on the container it says chicken also. And I think it's really good on chicken. It's also really good on popcorn, so really like lots of uses for this. It is a blend of, like, celery seed is a primary flavor in it, and it has cayenne pepper and paprika, and then it also says spices. And I believe what's kind of unique about it is it actually has some like very small amounts of more like baking spice type spices, like allspice and mace and nutmeg. Ginger probably also, just in there in really small amounts that just give it a kind of a special something. So I like to just give a generous amount of Old Bay along with my salt and pepper. I swear once you have this, you're going to be addicted to putting this on your roast chicken. It's my favorite. Okay, so this side of the chicken is all seasoned. We are going to season the underside, but I just season that once it's in the pan because then I don't have to fuss around with flipping it around in here. So our pan is hot. I've had it on kind of medium-high, heating up really quickly, but now you want to change it down to just at medium. I'm gonna put in about a tablespoon of vegetable oil. I use grapeseed oil here. You can use, oh, my pan is hot. It's nice and hot. That's good. You can use whatever high heat vegetable oil you prefer. Let me get this back on the burner. I just took it off for a second there since it was so hot. All right, this is probably gonna make a big sizzle. Yes. Just get your chicken in that pan. So I'm using a 10-inch skillet for these 4 pieces. And you wouldn't want to go any smaller than that. Okay. Once that is in the pan, again, adjust your heat so it's at medium. I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. I'm going to move this out of the way. And then I'm going to season the bottom side of the chicken once it's in there with, again, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and a little bit more of the Old Bay. What's that? Oh, nice. If some more people are just showing up, welcome. Thanks for watching tonight. You might just be watching or cooking along from home. Either way, welcome. My Old Bay is coming out slowly. There it goes. Okay. So, chicken seasoned well on both sides. Now here's the tricky part for those of you who like to fuss around with your food while it's cooking. This is not one of those recipes. You really just don't even want to touch it until the timer goes off in now a little bit less than 14 minutes. So obviously use your senses as you're cooking. So if you smell it and it smells like it's getting too dark, maybe take a little peek at it, and you might need to turn the temperature down. But if you have it right at medium, it should be good to go and give you a perfectly deep golden brown skin after 15 minutes. So we shall see. So I'm just going to leave that alone, and I have my timer going, and we can move on to our cornbread muffins. I might just use this pan, actually. Okay. I tried to write this recipe so that you use as few utensils as possible. Always trying to create less dishes here. So if you follow it just as written, you won't be using very many utensils. We're just going to use one bowl, one fork to mix it up. Of course, we have some measuring spoons. And you just need one liquid measuring cup that we're going to melt the butter and then measure all of the liquids in one after another. So I'm actually going to start out by measuring out my butter and getting it melted, and then we'll measure the dry ingredients. You want 5 tablespoons of butter. And I generally have salted butter at my house, so I just use salted butter in this. And then I add in a little bit extra salt. But if you have unsalted butter, then maybe add in a little bit more salt. Let's see, we're going to put in a 1/4 teaspoon, so you can put in a little bit more than that if you are using unsalted butter. Okay, got 5 tablespoons of butter in my measuring cup. I'm going to microwave this. And then we can start measuring our simple dry ingredients. So we want a cup each of regular all-purpose flour and also cornmeal. There's my cup of flour. I got a new kind of cornmeal yesterday because I just happened to be at LifeSource. And I saw this cornmeal in the bulk section, and I thought it looked really good. So you do want a nice fine cornmeal for this, though, which this one I thought looked pretty fine. The finer the cornmeal for this recipe, the lighter the muffins will be. If you use a coarse cornmeal, you could get kind of stodgy muffins. We don't want stodgy muffins. God. Okay.
What is corn flour?
Yeah, so interestingly, in the LifeSource bins, this says corn flour. But I think it's kind of a non-regulated term. So we had a question, what is corn flour? In Europe, they call finely ground cornmeal corn flour or polenta flour. But in the United States, it's more common for it to just be called cornmeal and have various coarsenesses listed. However, like I said, at LifeSource yesterday, I need a little bit more. At LifeSource yesterday, in the bulk bins, this particular one said corn flour. So I guess LifeSource is Europe. I don't know. But this one just looked really good to me because it said it was from a local corn, I guess a local mill, and it listed the varieties of corn, and it sounded good. So I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, I'm just leveling this off. There's my cup of cornmeal. Now we need 3 tablespoons of white sugar. And this is kind of to your own taste. I like my corn muffins to have just the barest hint of sweetness. Not overboard. I don't want it to be like cake. I want it to just be bread with a hint of sweetness. So I think 3 tablespoons for me is just right. You could definitely adjust that if you like. We want some leavener. So we're just using baking powder only. 1 tablespoon of that. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to add in a little bit of salt. There's salt in my butter, and then we just want a little bit more. All right, so there's our dry ingredients. Take your fork and get those well mixed so you don't have any pockets of baking powder or salt. And then we're going to grab the melted butter out of the microwave. Just kind of make a little well in the center. Typically when you're making a muffin, you would mix together all the wet ingredients and then pour them into the center. But we're just going to kind of reduce our number of bowls and just pour our wet ingredients into the center right on top of each other. So there's 5 tablespoons of butter. We're going to use a cup of milk. You can measure that right in the same measuring cup. Pour that in. And then you can crack your 2 eggs into that same measuring cup. And use that same fork to just lightly beat those. Pour your eggs in. We want just a little bit of oil. The combination of butter plus a little bit of oil in here just seems to give these just the right amount of richness and a good texture. Okay. So we have our wet ingredients in there. I'm going to take a quick peek at the chicken. I know I said not to mess with it, but I'm cooking here at the store instead of at home where I've been testing my recipes, and I just want to make sure everything's going along smoothly. So if you're feeling nervous and you want to take a little peek, don't wiggle them around. Just lift them up and take a little peek. They look good. I'll flip one over so you can see it. So they're looking nice, golden brown. We have about 5 minutes left on this first side. I don't know. I think I'm using a gas burner, so I have to be really gentle with my temperature regulation. So I'm gonna just turn it down just the tiniest little smidge, just so that they don't get too dark on that side. All right. You can use that same fork and just mix up your muffin batter. And keep on mixing until it looks like it's mostly mixed, but you still see a few blobs of dry ingredients or lumps, whatever it might look like to you. So once it's at that point, you can add in your cheese. I just have about a half a cup of shredded, I'm using sharp cheddar. The amount of cheese is not like particularly, you don't have to be careful with it. So put in a little bit more, a little bit less cheese. When I'm making this at home, I honestly don't measure it. I just grate a little bit of cheese until it looks right to me and stir it in. It's not going to have a big effect on these muffins if you use a little more or a little less. Okay, get that cheese stirred in so it's well combined, but you don't want to overmix your muffins. It will make them kind of flat, not nice and light and fluffy. So just make sure you don't see any pockets of dry ingredients. If you still see a few lumps, that's totally fine. All right. Just gonna get this stuff out of the way. This amount of batter really perfectly makes 12 muffins, which is nice. I like to use a cookie scoop. And this is, I believe, I wrote it down here exactly what it is. Didn't I? Oh, yeah, 2.5 tablespoons. So if you have, I believe this one's actually a 2 tablespoon, and so I just kind of heap it a little bit to get myself just the right amount. It's hard to find a 2.5 tablespoon cookie scoop. You can find a 2 and a 3. Really what you want to do is fill these muffins up so they're about half full. Hopefully you did not forget to preheat your oven. We want it at 425 for these. They cook hot and fast. Let's see. I'm looking for the ones that have a little bit less in there. Use up the rest of this batter. I think I might have put a little extra cheese in today. That's totally fine. We'll just have a little taller muffins. I'm really starting to smell that chicken. It smells good, and it has a little bit over a minute left on that side. All right, muffins. So go ahead and put your muffins in the oven if your batter is all ready. These take exactly 15 minutes for me, but maybe look at them at 13 minutes just to make sure. Here I am back from the oven. Everyone's oven is different, so 15 minutes is my time for these muffins at my home oven, but it might be a little more or less at your house. Okay, so we have a couple of things to prepare here. We're gonna flip our chicken any minute now. You can take one more peek at them if you like. They're looking very nice. Yes. You should see a decent amount render out and be there in the bottom of the pan, which is just what you want because that's going to create our pan sauce. So next two things on our list, we have shallot, and it says 1 large shallot. I had one of those shallots where when you peeled it, it became 2. I'm just going to use all of it because what the heck. And I like this sliced just into really nice thin rings. There is our timer. Take a break from that shallot. I'm going to flip the chicken over. Okay, I flipped the chicken, and you want to set the timer for 7 minutes. We're just going to add these last 2 ingredients. Basically, we're going to cook this chicken for 10 more minutes on this side, but we're going to add these last 2 ingredients during the last 3 minutes of cooking. So 7 minutes to start out with. Don't need to worry about it. As long as you have it set on medium heat, it should be just fine. And we'll keep on chopping up our ingredients here. So again, just thin rings for the shallot. first thing I have here is this red chili, and it is a Fresno chili. This is a very delicious chili. It has a really good fruity flavor and a medium to medium hot spice level, I would say. Around the spice level of a jalapeno if you actually get a hot jalapeno, which you never really know if you're going to get a hot jalapeno or not. But these are like always the same temperature, at least the ones that I've been getting. So that's kind of nice. You can actually count on this to be a somewhat spicy chili. These are available pretty much at every Roth's in town. I was talking with a customer who lives in Almsville, and she was like, certainly not Staten, though. And I said, yes, it even is at Staten Roth's, because I was just there a couple weeks ago, and lo and behold, even the Staten Roth's had Fresno chilies. So you can find these at any Roth's. Have a little, one of those weird little baby chilies inside this chili. Just gonna get rid of that. I like to cut this in half and then thinly slice it, and I do leave the seeds in, but if you don't like things to be quite as spicy, you could remove the seeds. If you are a fan of the celebrity chef Bobby Flay, I feel like he is the person who most famously uses Fresno chilies. He uses them constantly in everything. It's like his favorite chili. And so if you watch the show, I don't know if it's actually still running, but it has a million reruns, Beat Bobby Flay. He's always using Fresno chilies in everything he makes. These chilies are also really good pickled. So if you ever want to try a quick pickle of a little spicy chili, this would be a good option for trying that out. Okay, so I've got my thinly sliced Fresno chilies and my thinly sliced shallot. And we have two other ingredients here that you just want to have ready. Some nice honey. And I like apple cider vinegar in this because I think it just goes really well with the other flavors. But if you just don't happen to have apple cider vinegar, I'm sure a nice red or white wine vinegar would be great, or maybe a malt vinegar also. But this is my preferred one, apple cider vinegar. I do like them when it says that it has the mother. And there's a couple brands that have that. So this is Bragg's, which is kind of a famous brand that does have the mother, which I guess that means that, I think what it means is that you could make more apple cider vinegar out by using this apple cider vinegar. Like if you poured some of this into apple cider, I believe it would eventually create new apple cider vinegar. I think. I'm not really that up on my vinegar making skills, but I believe that's correct. So those four ingredients, we're ready to go for our pan sauce. I'm just checking the time. We have 3 more minutes on our chicken until we add this stuff. So let's get our greens out and get those ready. So I kind of wrote this recipe for people who enjoy a lot of greens. Because this does make a pretty big bowl of salad for 4 people, but at my house we love greens, so just half this amount was not enough. The first time I tested this, I only used mustard greens. Here are some of my mustard greens. And it was just a little too intense for everyone. So we found that cutting it about 50-50 with romaine lettuce created the perfect salad where you have the peppery bite from the mustard greens, but it's not overwhelming. So to prepare your mustard greens, you do want to take out the coarse stem, and I usually just kind of hold it so the back is facing me, the back of the leaf, and then just pull from the bottom like so, and it generally just pulls right off. And then I honestly, since I already have this in my hand, I just tear it by hand. I don't even bother using my knife for the mustard greens. It can just be coarsely torn up like this. Some of your mustard greens might come like this with multiple leaves on the stem. If you have the little baby ones, you can kind of use all of the baby ones because their stems are still tender enough. But the bigger pieces, you do want to make sure you get those coarse stems off of there. I think this might be one of the first times I normally cook mustard greens, and I think most people normally cook mustard greens. So this might be the first time I've ever experimented with actually making a somewhat fresh salad out of mustard greens, but I'm really enjoying it. Okay, so it looks really fluffy, but this was just one regular sized bunch of mustard greens. If you're still de-stemming those at home, just carry on. And then I have one romaine heart here, and it is good to go. I am just going to, I like to cut it lengthwise, basically like into quarters, and then just chop it. Again, fairly coarsely, maybe like every inch. Our chicken timer is just about to go off. Add that romaine into your greens. There's our chicken timer. Okay, so this chicken should have about 3 minutes left until it is completely cooked. And what we want to do is just kind of lift the chicken up and tuck these two ingredients underneath. Hopefully I explained that well enough in the recipe. Yeah, I did. And then just keep on cooking it for 3 more minutes. So I'm going to get my timer ready on 3 minutes here. And I'm going to grab a fresh pair of tongs because now our chicken is basically cooked. So I don't want to use those tongs that had raw chicken on them. I'm just going to lift each piece up and just kind of tuck a little bit of veggies down underneath each piece. Like so. All right. Just kind of make sure the shallots, bless you, Scott. Make sure those are down on the surface of the hot pan so that they can get fully cooked. And I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. All right. If you want to, at this point, you could mix up the honey and apple cider vinegar together in a little bowl and whisk it together, and that does help the honey kind of loosen up. But I just put it right into the pan. I do have one little trick though, which is that I like to spray my measuring spoon with pan spray before I start measuring out the honey. Just because it slides right out and makes it so much easier. And just to be clear also, this recipe calls for 4 tablespoons of honey, which is actually a quarter cup. So I'm going to use a quarter cup. You can decide at home if you want to get 2 things dirty or have the ease of just measuring the honey one time. I'm going with getting one more thing dirty. All right. I'm going to take a peek, or I'm actually just going to look at the timer on our corn muffins, so I'll be right back. Ah, yes. Okay, so this is all coming together just perfectly. Very good timing. Our corn muffins, I set them for 13 minutes. They have 1 minute left, so it's been 12 minutes, and they're looking like they will, in my opinion, need the full 15 minutes, which means they're going to be done in 3 minutes. And this is going to be done in about 3 minutes also. And look at that, folks. We're going to have dinner ready in like 40 minutes, which is awesome. So we're just waiting here. we just have a little bit longer until this, the shallots and the chili in the bottom of this pan are fully cooked. If you want to and you're nervous about your chicken, you could take its temperature at this point. I feel like this amount of cooking is quite sufficient for chicken thighs, but if you like, you could take their temperature and you want them to be at 165 to be safe. If they are over 165, the nice thing about chicken thighs is that that doesn't really matter very much. If they're even 10, 15 degrees over 165, it doesn't really matter. They're still going to be perfectly juicy, and that's the great thing about chicken thighs. I'm going to go check that little buzzer on the muffins, and I'm probably going to just set it for 2 more minutes. All right, muffins are back on. They will have cooked for 15 minutes total when we bring them out. And our timer is going to go off in 3 seconds, which is great. Okay, I have a clean plate here, and I'm just going to transfer the cooked chicken to that plate. Try to leave as many of the shallots in the bottom of the pan as you can. They will attempt to cling to your bottom of your chicken, but try to shake them off of there. Okay, give this a little toss. Make sure everything is nicely softened up, which it looks like it is. It's looking very good. I had a lot of shallots in this one, just because I used that giant shallot that actually became 2 shallots. So if you want to cook your shallots so they're a little more brown, you could, but if you had a small shallot, it probably already is brown. I feel like mine are a little bit on the lighter side simply because I had so much shallot in here, so it added a little more moisture. So I think we should just go for it here. I am going to spray with pan spray. I'll kind of do it over this plate so I don't make a mess. I'm going to spray my 1/4 cup and then measure a 1/4 cup of honey. Again, if anybody has any questions out there, now that we're getting closer to this meal being ready to go, just go ahead and ask them in the chat. I'm going to get those muffins out and I'll bring them to the camera so you can see what they look like, and then I'm going to put them over here on the oven to cool. The stove, not the oven. Okay, here's our nice little cornbread muffins. They look lightly golden brown. They've risen well, and they look delicious. And I can tell they're just going to pop right out of this silicone tray, which is nice. I generally let them cool for about 5 minutes and then take a little spoon or the tip of a butter knife and just kind of get them loosened up out of there, and they come right out with the silicone muffin tin. Okay, so we had just measured our honey. I'm going to go ahead and add that into the pan. It seems like a lot of honey, but it really balances out well with the vinegar that we're going to use and with the fat of the chicken and the spiciness of the Fresno chili. And then also don't forget that we're using a lot of really peppery mustard greens here. So that's why it's a little sweeter than I would normally go for a salad dressing, because we need it to balance out all those other things. Okay. Use your tongs, or you can switch to a spoon if you want to. And you just want to give that a good stir and make sure the honey is kind of dissolved. Your pan is hot, so it should happen very quickly. Okay. We want to dress our salad using this still very hot pan sauce. But you don't want to use all of this sauce. So I have a little bowl. I'm going to use part of the sauce to dress the salad, and I'm going to pour the remainder into this bowl. And you can offer this when you're serving the dinner. Some people might like to drizzle extra sauce over the top of their chicken, so it just kind of depends what people are into. But let me grab a nice spoon here. I feel like I generally end up putting maybe about half of this. And you do want it going on there nice and hot. And try to get the shallots and chilies in particular so that they're going into your salad. If you have a few that you missed, that's fine. They can be in your sauce bowl. But you want the majority of those in your salad. Let's see. These are my salad mixing tongs here. Give that a good toss right away. And it's going to lightly wilt these greens. They're still going to be fresh and green looking and still have some good texture, but it will just soften them up a little bit. And I think that actually I'm very pleased with the amount of dressing on here. It looks just right to me. The salad is all lightly dressed, but not overly greasy. Okay, so I feel like that's really well coated. I'm gonna season this with a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay. We want to pour our remaining sauce. Just pour it into a little bowl. It's not like the world's beautifulest sauce. Beautifulest. That is not a word. It's kind of an ugly sauce, but it's a very delicious sauce, so that makes up for it. Okay, let me grab a plate and we'll just plate up this dinner. So we're gonna go with a nice piece of chicken there, some delicious mustard green salad, and make sure you let everyone know at your house that, whoa, that was a really big tong full of salad, that there's goodies in here. So they wanna dig around and make sure they get some of the cooked shallots and some of the Fresno chilies. Get one so there's a Fresno chili right on top there. That'll look pretty. And then let me grab a corn muffin. All right. Right there. Is that good? Okay. So here is our simple meal. This is like a nice light southern flavored meal. If you love fried chicken and rich cooked greens and pork fat and sweet cornbread, maybe this is like a healthy version that will satisfy your craving for those types of food. So I hope you really enjoy it. Do we have any other questions before we say goodnight tonight? No, I know, again, this is very simple recipes, so I guess everyone just had a successful meal. Hopefully, most of you are already signed up for our future classes. We have one more. We have them basically every other week from now until the end of May. So the next one is vegetarian. It is crispy sesame tofu with fried cauliflower rice. So that'll be really tasty, really delicious. And then we have 2 more in May. So check those out if you're not already signed up. And again, thank you for joining us here at Willamette Valley Kitchen Company. Thank you for cooking along with me tonight. I hope you have a great night.